Sepher Yirah 8. The Mother's Sin and the Foolish King. Written by Ari. This text reveals the secrets of darkness, and as such, reader, be warned, this text is not for the faint of heart and should be read carefully and only after reading Sepher Yirah 4 and 5, as they contain the light needed to ground oneself during such revelations. And by the divinity of his Torah, which allows us to know such things and such conditions, without which we would be ignorant like our former conditions. To you be the glory and the glory of your Torah, and may every reader cherish the words of your Torah. The Sin of the Mother. Zohar Bereshit A14, Let us make man, Part 1. 159, and Elohim said, Let us make man, Bereshit 126. This is the secret of the verse. The secret of Hashem is with those who fear him. Psalms 25 verse 14, the most venerated old man opened the discussion saying, Shimon, Shimon, who is he who said, Let us make man? And Elohim said? And who is this name of Elohim? In the meantime, the venerated old man flew away and he could not see him. When Rabbi Shimon heard that he called him Shimon and not Rabbi Shimon, he said to his friends, This is indeed the Holy One, blessed be he, of whom it is written of and in Atik Yamin, Ancient of Days did sit. Now is the time to reveal this secret, which was previously forbidden to be revealed. However, permission has now been granted to reveal it. 160, Rabbi Shimeon started by saying, This is like a king who had many buildings to build, and he had a craftsman. That craftsman did not do anything without the permission of the king, as it is written, Then I was by him as a nursling, Hebrew Amun, Mishlei 8:30. The king is most certainly the supernal wisdom above, which is Abba, and the central pillar is the king down below, namely Zir Anpin. Elohim, the craftsman above, is the supernal Ima, and the craftsman below is the Shekinah below. 161. A wife is not permitted to do anything without the permission of her husband. Of all the buildings that were in the way of Atziluth, that is in the world of Atziluth, Abba would say to Ima, Let it be so, and it was immediately. It is written, and Elohim said, Let there be light, and there was light. And said alludes to the owner of the building, who said to Elohim, Let there be light. So uttered the words, and the craftsman completed the task immediately. And this was the same for every edifice that came into being by way of Atziluth, where Abba would say, Let there be a firmament, or let there be luminaries, and Ima would create everything in an instance. 162. When he reached the world of separation, which is the world of those divided, that is to create the soul of man in the world of Bariah, the craftsman then said to the owner of the building, Let us make man in our image and after our likeness. Bereshit 126, the owner of the building said, I know will be a good servant for you, but he shall sin before you, because he is foolish, as it is written, A wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother, Mishlei 10:1. 163, Ima said, Because his sins are related to Ima and not Abba, I wish to create him in my own image, as it is written, So Elohim created man in his own image. Bereshit 127, it is not written in our image, because she did not want Abba to have any share in this creation. 164, when Adam sinned, it was written, And for your transgressions was your mother put away. Yeshaya 50:1, the king who is Abba said to Ima, Did I not tell you that he was going to sin? Why did you create him? In that instance, he exiled him and his mother. Therefore it is written, A wise son make a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. A wise son alludes to the man in Atziluth, and a foolish son alludes to the man in Bariah. 165. All the friends rose and said to Rabbi Shimon in astonishment, Rabbi, Rabbi, could there be such separation between Abba and Amma, so much so that what emanated from the aspects of Abba shall be formed in the way of Atziluth, and that which emanated from the aspects of Ima shall be formed in the way of Bariah? I will now open these gates and answer the Holy One, blessed be he. 159, and Elohim said, "Let us make man." Bereshit 1:26. This is the secret of the verse. The secret of Hashem is with those who fear him. Psalms 25 verse 14. The most venerated old man opened the discussion saying, "Shimon, Shimon, who is he who said, 'Let us make man'?" And Elohim said, "And who is this name of Elohim?" In the meantime the venerated old man flew away and he could not see him. When Rabbi Shimon heard that he called him Shimon and not Rabbi Shimon, he said to his friends, "This is indeed the Holy One, blessed be he, of whom it is written of and an Atik Yaman, Ancient of Days, did sit." Now is the time to reveal this secret, which was previously forbidden to be revealed. However, permission has now been granted to reveal it. The secrets of the Atik Yaman's construction reveals this and conveys by the eternal this matter being well known to you in the prior Sepher Yirah books. 160. Rabbi Shimeon started by saying, "This is like a king who had many buildings to build and he had a craftsman. That craftsman did not do anything without the permission of the king, as it is written, 'Then I was by him as a nursling,' Hebrew Amun, Mishlei 8:30. The king is most certainly the supernal wisdom above, which is Abba, and the central pillar is the king down below, namely Zir Anpin. Elohim, the craftsman above, is the supernal Ima, and the craftsman below is the Shekinah below. Rabbi Shimeon, here are the levels of the mother's Torah symbolized by Shema, here, which is the level of the ears being Bina. 1. Vav Nun, here alludes to Makuth, called the wheel, and so he reveals the secret of the craftsman, Hebrew Amun, being Eem, Aleph Mem, the mother, and Un, Vav Nun, Makuth, a separation between the upper king, Abba and Hokmah, and the lower king called a foolish king is made. But that the craftsmen are the same. 161. A wife is not permitted to do anything without the permission of her husband. Of all the buildings that were in the way of Atziluth, that is in the world of Atziluth, Abba would say to Ima, "Let it be so, and it was immediately. It is written, and Elohim said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." And said alludes to the owner of the building who said to Elohim, "Let there be light." So uttered the words, and the craftsman completed the task immediately. And this was the same for every edifice that came into being by way of Atziluth, where Abba would say, "Let there be a firmament," or "Let there be luminaries," and Ima would create everything in an instance. That is to say, when the light of the ayin was filling the first simsum, which is Hokmah of the Atik Yaman, and is referred to here as the upper king and Abba. The craftsman and Ima refer to the hard spark, which is the Bina of the Atik Yaman. Abba would speak to Ima, that is to say, as the light filled the first simsum, it did so in the secret of the Nekudim, which are the vowels. Thus it says Abba would speak. This light is in the pattern of the 22 letters and the 231 gates. This forms a tree on top of tree for Hokmah and the light, and another set of 22 letters within the hard spark, which is Ima. Our sages said with white and black letters the Torah was written being Abba and Ima. 162. When he reached the world of separation, which is the world of those divided, that is to create the soul of man in the world of Bariah, the craftsman then said to the owner of the building, "Let us make man in our image and after our likeness." Bereshit 1:26. The owner of the building said, "I know will be a good servant for you, but he shall sin before you, because he is foolish, as it is written, a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother." Mishlei 10:1. When he reached the world of separation, which is the world of those divided, that is to say the hard spark, which was Ima at the limit of the correction. This correction was Atziluth, as it is written, "Wisdom gives life to its possessor," and all that was in this place by way of Atziluth was eternal, and by means of life the essence of Atziluth, and light the vessel, which is the same value as the endless, and every building there gladdens the heart, as it is written, "A wise son makes a glad father," and the word glad alludes to Messiah, who is with the Father. Let us make man, Zohar Bereshit A1, making an engraving upon the supernal light. 1. With the beginning of the manifestation of the king's will, that is when the king desired to emanate and create the world, a hard spark made an engraving upon the supernal light. This hard spark, which emanated from the most concealed of all concealed things, from the secret of the endless, took a shapeless form. The spark was then inserted into the center of a circle. We see from this that the restriction occurs because the king desired to emanate. This desire was within the light that restricted itself from all directions like a circle from which formed a hard spark in the center, containing within it the light that was withdrawn. Thus the mother Ima as well had a desire to create and emanate, being as the light that initially withdrew contained this desire to create. The supernal light of the endless, which is Abba, knew that her conception would be foolish and sin, being that its very existence was a sin. Regarding this son it is written, "My mother conceived me in sin." And foolish because it would be conceived outside of the light of life and in darkness, of which it was written, "Fools despise wisdom and instruction." Proverbs 1 verse 7. 163. Ima said, "Because his sins are related to Ima and not Abba, I wish to create him in my own image, as it is written, so Elohim created man in his own image." Bereshit 1:27. It is not written in our image because she did not want Abba to have any share in this creation. Thus Ima, being the hard spark, conceived of its own light, as it is written, wisdom and understanding, and she used the wisdom which was the light and life within herself, and conceived and brought forth a golem. And this is the value of the word wisdom, Hokmah. Wisdom and understanding was the conception of a golem by the mother, and it was born dead, being it was not conceived of life, and of this it is written of David the beloved of his mother, that he was born dead. This son refers to the lower seven, who was the king below, is the middle pillar, referring to the lower seven Sephiroth, which are the seven sparks that emerge from the hard spark, and the place of their emergence was darkness, as it is written, "The wicked are silent in darkness." This foolish son is the foolish king. Because it was of the mother it was written, "But the foolish man's heart directs him toward the left." Ecclesiastes 10 verse 2. The mother having been the afterthought, that is after the initial thought and act of creation, which was the initial desire to bring forth. Thus the light that restricted itself in the tzimtzum and gathered into the hard spark, contained within it the same desire to being forth. Now Ima, having witnessed the creation of the eternals within the endless of Atziluth, and having witnessed her own establishments, the light of the Ayin, conceived the thought to bring forth, and by the same desire of the invincible force within her conceived, for her thought was not idle but manifested in action through the light within her. Of these things it is written, wisdom and understanding, that is to say Ima, which is understanding, contained wisdom, which is light and light, and regarding her witnessing the creation of the endless and the eternal realms it is written, I was by him as a craftsman. Now she was called the 36th of the Eternals, brought forth, being that in the construction of Atziluth there is the name of the Father being, and in each place this name arises, and is explained in its place that Tzimtzum, and subsequently this first eternal realm being Atziluth was the secret of the Nekudim. There are 9 Nekudim, and there are 4 letters of to each. Thus she is said to have been the 36th, being the hard spark, which is Ima, and the Makuth of this aspect. Now because of this connection to Makuth here, she will later conceal herself amongst the dust. Now when she conceived, and when this foolish son emerged, it was so on the outside of the realm of life, which is darkness, being the backside of the eternal and the backside of the, and so it was called mindlessness, because it was outside the aspects of Hokmah and Bina, which were called mind. And being the she could only conceive light of an inferior order, that is to say less than her own light, she conceived 7 herself, being the 8th, and she would find rest in the 9th, with her husband Abba. Now the matter of the Father is in the first beginning, being the 231 gates in the secret of Israel, as is known. This being the secret of, he declared the end from the beginning. This is the light of the Father, and so the Torah begins Bereshit, which is to be read as second beginning, in that here this refers to the mother signified by the word Bara, which is to say Bariah, and this is the root of the mother who conceived of her own aspect. Thus our sages state this beginning was in Gevurah, being that a foal always leans left. Thus, there is no light in the first verse, as this heaven and earth being 7 in number alongside the Elohim which was created and emerged in darkness and remained silent, as it is written, the wicked are silent in darkness. Now all of these things are revealed in more depth in Tikkunei HaChoshech, I refer you there. We will now explain these matters as they present themselves in another certain place. Now Ima, who is the wisdom and afterthought and who constitutes an eternal realm, conceived of a thought herself, with the conception of the wisdom within her. She wanted to bring forth something like herself, without the consent of Abba, who had not given its approval, without her partner and without his consideration. The male did not give approval. She did not find her partner, and she considered this without the spirit's consent and without the knowledge of her partner. Nonetheless, she gave birth. And because of the invincible power within her, her thought was not an idle thought. Something came out of her that was imperfect and different in appearance from her, for she had produced it without her partner. It did not resemble its mother and was misshapen. Now when Ima saw what her desire had produced, it changed into the figure of a snake with the face of a lion. Its eyes were like flashing bolts of lightning. She cast it away from her, outside that realm, so that none of the immortals would see it. She had produced it ignorantly. It is known that the hard spark, which is Ima, brought forth 7 sparks, which are the secret of the 7 kings who died without weapons. These were the secret of the 7 letters with Tagan, which were both weapons and crowns, and it was written in the Talmud regarding this. Satan az gets, Satan a strong spark, as these 7 letters are the 7 kings which emerged from this spark, and it was called strong in that it was from the left, and it was only from Ima, so it is written a foal leans to the left, and the first 3 letters were the 3 of Satan. Regarding this it is written, out of his right hand goes Hesed, and similarly it is written, and Satan standing to the right, and this refers to these 3 letters which are Hesed, Gevurah, and Tifereth of the sparks. And because of this our sages said the serpent had no feet, and again falsehood has no feet. For this reason it is written a snake with the head of a lion, as it is written they all had the face of a lion to the right, and this is Satan who is the snake with the head of a lion. Now these 7 being the foolish son and king emerged beneath the hard spark, and thus beneath Ima, and outside of the place of the Father which was the domain of the eternal. Thus it was stated. 164. When Adam sinned, it was written, and for your transgressions was your mother put away. Yeshaya 50:1. The king who is Abba said to Ima, did I not tell you that he was going to sin? Why did you create him? In that instance, he exiled him and his mother. Therefore it is written, a wise son make a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. A wise son alludes to the man in Atziluth, and a foolish son alludes to the man in Beriah. And so we see the mother and the son were put away, because he emerged from outside the light and was ignorant of his existence and was called foolish. He despised the Father whom he was ignorant of, and of which it is written, a fool despises wisdom. The mother sinned in conceiving this foolish child, as it is written, my mother conceived me in sin, and so she was exiled by her partner whom she sinned against. And because she conceived him of herself and without life, which was her partner, this child was born dead, and is the origin of all death. For this reason our sages stated death was from Beriah and below, for everything that this foolish king would create would ultimately be an admixture with death and ignorance like himself, of which it was stated that the angels do not know the place of his glory, for they were conceived in ignorance. The lower 7 being that ignorance, in that it lacked knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and all which are the qualities of the upper Sephiroth, which he was not conceived of. The reason for this is that Ima is the 8th and therefore conceived only the lights inferior to her grade, being 7. For this reason it is written, 7 days under the mother, and this referred to the 7 days of creation which were formed under the mother and by that foolish king below. And the lights that emerged in this place were the heaven and the earth, and they were the lower 7, and everything was in darkness and extinguished, being tohu and mindlessness. And the light, which was the light of the mother that had produced these 7 sparks, which are this foolish son, mingled with the tohu. Mindlessness. by which he was called foolish and ignorant, and by which it was likened to whoring, and the sparks mingled, that is to say coupled and exchanged qualities with the mindlessness from which it was written, and the earth was void. Hebrew. Va aretz tohu, that is to say 7 vav and he, male and female, kings which are the earth, aretz, by which he was called a king, being birthed from the qualities of Malkuth, which is all aspects of kingship. Hebrew melech. This place that he emerged is the secret of Jericho for Israel, i.e. the 231 gates being the mother would wrap around the city 7 times, i.e. around the child which is the city, and sounded a shofar, which are 70 sounds of labor, and the sound of the death of the mother, as was with Sarah when it was sounded, and the matter was her son whom she presumed dead, and the city fell. Now what remained was Rahab the harlot, and she is the secret of the female, and this is what is written of Leviathan Nehash Barak, and she was a harlot, because the city, i.e. the sparks had coupled with her, and she is the secret of the tohu in the midst, and she was the center of the city, and the sparks, coupled with the mindlessness of this second restriction, being 7 in number, and regarding this it is written, when I made the clouds its garment, and wrapped it in thick darkness. It is written also, that day will be a day of wrath, a day of distress and anguish, a day of trouble and ruin, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness. Zephaniah 1 verse 15. And these 7 are the 7 of the first verse, which is Bereshit bara Elohim 8 ha-shamayim vet haaretz. In another place it is written, she surrounded him with a cloud, and put a throne in the middle of the cloud so that no one would see it, and she called it Elohim, like herself. As it is written, when I made the clouds its garment, and wrapped it in thick darkness. Elohim is the first ruler, who took great power from his mother. Then he left her, and moved away from the place where he was born. He took control and created for himself heavens with the light of his mother that was instilled within him and from which he was ignorant of. He mated with the mindlessness in him and produced 7 kings, and these were the kings of Edom who died. Elohim stationed 7 kings, 1 for each of the 7 spheres of heaven, to reign over the 7 heavens. When the light mixed with darkness, it made the darkness shine. When darkness mixed with light, it dimmed the light and became neither light nor darkness but gloom. He was conceived and was dead, being brought forth without the aspect of the Father, which was life, because wisdom being the Father is life, as it is written, wisdom gives life to its possessor, and so it is written, and the earth was void, tohu, and formless, bohu. And darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim vibrated over the face of the waters, and this spirit of Elohim is the foolish king, who although having emerged dead, and being a golem, vibrated over the face of the water, which was the destruction of the sparks, which are the sparks of the foolish son coming, led with the mindlessness which had initially destroyed them, and the foolish king was with these 7 which were the waters, and it vibrated, which is to say, that although it was dead, having emerged dead, and being likened to an aborted fetus that is cast away from its mother, vibrated over the face of the water, and sought to bring forth out of that water. This was Elohim, the heaven and the earth. And a decree went forth, and this is what is written. The Elohim that did not create the heaven and the earth shall pass away. His sins were announced, and he was exiled alongside his mother. And so we have established a foolish son is the grief of his mother, and alongside death the initial result of the emergence of the sparks into the tohu, which is the mindlessness, was also grief. You should know grief is accompanied with death, for death was the child who was born dead, and grief was the understanding when it perceived the mindlessness. It was written regarding this matter, and look to the earth, and see distress, darkness, and the gloom of anguish. They will be driven into thick darkness. Isaiah 8 verse 22. The beginning of the words of his mouth is foolishness, and the end of his talk is madness. Ecclesiastes 10 verse 13. And so it is written, and Elohim said, Hebrew, Vayomer Elohim. This speaking was the king below, who spoke by the power of the mother's light from which he was conceived, and so said, Vayomer is, or me. The light of who? which is the mother called who, and by this light he created these things and established 7 kings, which are the 7 kings of Edom, and he spoke, let there be light, Yehi or. But this light did not endure, and so it is written Vehi or, and there was light, which is to say the light did not endure or stay. However, seeing the light which is called 8 ha or, he conceived to himself that it was good, which was by means of ignorance, for he conceived himself to be Elohim, and so it is written, and Elohim saw the light, that it was good, and this light was the secret of the 22 letters. He saw within this light the secret of the mother, which was the 22 letters and the 231 gates, and the pattern of the supernal. A desire arose to investigate this light. He then divided the light which had been brought forth in ruin, as it is written, let there be light, and there was light, for that light he had brought forth did not endure, and was in ruin from the light of the first day, that had been mingled with the mindlessness, and became darkness. And he saw the light, and this was called 8 ha or, and within it he saw the divine pattern which had remained from his mother. He called this light good, for within it he saw the divine pattern of the Father. And so it is written, he divided the light from the darkness, and he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. Now these two are the 2 powers that are with him, and they are his right and left hands. With his right he stretched out the heavens, which refers to the day, and with his left he laid the foundation of the earth, and this is the night. For the sun, which is in the aspect called heavens, rules the day, and the moon, which is in the aspect called earth, rules the night. This night is called darkness, and this light is called day. As it is written, the wicked for the evil day. This darkness and evil are the male and female. Regarding the day it is written, this is the evil in everything that happens under the sun. This latter being the minister, as it is written of the great lights, which are the ministers of these 2 male and female, and of the great lights, the greater to rule the day and the lesser to rule the night. Now alongside these we may know of the others. It is written, a foolish son is the grief of his mother, by which that one called grief emerged. And the foolish king was death, being born dead, having not the quality called life from Abba. And the Zohar states the serpent brought forth wrath, being this lion-headed serpent, of which it is written, the king's wrath is like the roaring of a lion. By this we see wrath brought forth. And to one side the darkness, and to the other the light, and from these 2 many demons and destroying angels emerged, as it is written. He sent upon them his burning anger, fury, and indignation, and trouble, a band of destroying angels. Psalm 78 verse 49. And he prepared with his right hand a certain heaven, and by means of the pattern of the mother, and these had the face of a lion like himself, and being of the lower 7 they had the faces of animals, and it was written regarding this, they all had the face of a lion to the right side. And he prepared with his left a certain heaven, and by means of the pattern of the mother, and these had the face of an ox, and of this it is written. They all had the face of an ox to the left side, and a certain other heaven, and here they had the face of an eagle. As it is written, they all had the face of an eagle, and on the 6th day a certain one, by which it is written, let us make man after our image, and of this it is written, they all had the face of man. And none of these knew the place of his glory, as they were conceived in ignorance, but after the pattern of the higher things, which was the light of his mother within. Thus he spoke Vaymer, me or. It is written regarding these matters that each of these 4 faces had 4 faces. 4 times 4 times 4 is equal to 72, and these are the 72 faces of the foolish king. Alongside this there were 72 wings, which were appointed to the 72 faces. These watch over the 70 nations of whom they watch and rule. The wings were the secret of the 18 knots of the 4 corners of the talith, and they total 72. 18 plus 18 plus 18 plus 18 is equal to 72. He wraps himself with 86 angels, being 42 seraphim and 42 Ophanim, and the 2 Metatron and Sandalphon alongside them value Elohim, 86. It was written regarding this 7 days under the mother, for these days were under the mother, being outside the mother. A day is 6, being the secret of Zur Anpin, and thus we see her 42 seraphim and 42 Ophanim, which were the days under its mother. It was written in a certain place, each of these 7 received 6. He carries in his hand 4 shovels, and when he goes forth he does so with 49 lashes. And it was explained, when the foolish king emerged he did so by the lower 7, and these worlds cascaded and created the hairs of his garment, and he was called hairy. Cain and similarly Esau would follow in this likeness. And you should know the cascading of these 7 worlds caused 7 eyes to emerge, and the eye is the secret of the tzimtzum, and it gazed with its eyes, and it was covered in hairs. From this it was stated by our sages, and in the Zohar, the children of the serpent shave their hair. From this we learn the root of the hairs of the animals, and the hairs in these 2 places. He emerged like a great fire, which were these sparks, and it is written regarding this, a fire goes out of his throne, this throne being the mother, as the throne has a value of Elohim, and this fire, Hebrew Esh, was the man called Aish. So it is that the fire burns according to these 7, as with the light, so these 7 are the branches. At the conclusion of these things a man was formed from the dust of the ground, as it is written, and he formed man from the dust of the ground. This man like himself and the other things brought forth did not contain life, and therefore he was formed dead, lacking life. This dust was the dust of the destroyed Sephiroth, which like the foolish king himself emerged from the sin of the mother, as it is written, my mother conceived me in sin. Being born dead, as David was born dead, and so this man formed from the dust did not have life, but rather qualities of the soul. Not a living soul, for once the neshama would enter into his nostrils he would be called a living soul. Now this dust being of the destroyed words, contained within them the light of the Father, being the initial light and life of the sparks. This king being foolish and ignorant knew not the source of the light within this dust, and formed the man from this dust according to the divine pattern within the light of that dust. He gathered 365 demons which were of the darkness, and formed 365 aspects of the flesh, and 248 destroying angels from the right, and formed the 248 bones of the man, and he gathered them from the dust in the pattern of the divine. However, all of these 365 demons were formed and created in ignorance, as they emerged from the left, which is darkness, and they did not have light, which is life, and so even though they assembled alongside these 248 destroying angels in the divine pattern, the man was not living as they themselves were. Not living. And lacking the quality of Abba, which is life, this man was manifested dead like himself, and so he breathed into his nostrils the neshama, which was the light of the mother, and this light entered the man, and he lived. This life was from the wisdom in understanding. And so they formed the man and investigated and brought to him beasts, and had him commingle with the beasts as he had coming led, and with the mindlessness. He achieved this by commingling the beasts, which are the destroying angels and demons, that were brought forth from the commingling of the initial mindlessness with this man. Regarding these demons and angels, it is written out of the ground, which refers to that dust, which coming led with the mindlessness. And this foolish king formed these angels and demons from these things, as it is written. Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto the man, he coming led with each thing that was brought to him, as it was established by our sages, and he did so in ignorance, for it is written to see what he would call them, and our sages further established he would commingle with each thing brought to him, call it accordingly a goat, Hebrew seer, because it was hairy, ser, etc., for it was by the quality of that he named it, and when he would awake a new thing would be brought to him. He investigated this man until all beasts and all birds were brought to him, and he coming led with them all, being a whore like his foolish father, who whores himself with the mindless. Having established as such the complete host had coming led with the man, and yet it is written, when he saw there was no helpmate. And he said, it is not good for man to be alone. He said this, having seen the neshama, which is the light and life, instilled into the man, become corrupted by the zoma, which is the filth and darkness that entered into him as a result of his commingling with the entire host of beasts and birds. He saw that the darkness, which was the corruption, gathered to one side, and the light, which was the light of the neshama, to another, and he said, it is not good for man to be alone, and intending to investigate further, and having been enraged, as it is written, a fool despises wisdom, which was the light in the man, and so he conceived to separate the man, that he may be alone, being separated into two. A deep sleep was placed upon the man, and he was separated from the side, and this was the limits of the darkness that had entered into him. The woman was formed from this darkness of the commingling with these beasts, and so she is called by the 52 name, which is the value of Behema, which is beast. The woman was brought to the man, and it did not say that it was good, for this woman being darkness and death herself would succeed in the ends of this foolish king's endeavor to curse the man. Now this man was placed into a garden, and if you suppose it is Eden, then behold, it is written, a river goes out of Eden to water the garden, and this garden had a tree of life in the midst, and each of the trees in this place brought forth death and bitterness, as it is written, lest he extend his hand and eat of the tree of life and live forever. So we see only one tree gave life, and this teaches us that each and every other tree brings death. Collectively these trees extended to the right and to the left, for they were the hosts and the commingling, and their totality was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It was called knowledge, because knowledge is commingling. Good and evil refer to all of the beasts and birds that would be brought to him. Thus his neshama was further defiled, and the 365 birds and the 248 beasts attached to the light of that man. And they prevented the man from eating of the tree of life, as it is written, lest he extend his hand and eat of the tree of life and live forever, because this tree was the tree of their life, and eating of this tree would cause these 365 demons and 248 destroying angels to be removed, and the man would become purified. These 248 bones and 365 aspects of flesh having removed their curses upon the light of that man. Now the foolish king succeeded with his hosts in cursing that light, and so they took the man and the woman and exiled them out of that garden, which are those heavens by which the foolish king created. He did this by digging out by the hollow of his hand a deep abyss, as it is written in the Zohar. 1500 As he formed his throne which was in Beriah, his garden which was Yetzirah and Asiyah, where he would make the man in his new-found condition cursed. He used his right and left hand to accomplish this, being Rakab the harlot, which is right, and Samael, which is his left hand. It is written, with his left hand he laid the foundations of the earth, and so Samael, who is killing and bloodshed, and his left hand laid the foundations of this earth and exile of curses, prepared for the man formed by that light. For it is written, a fool despises wisdom, which is the light he did not understand, and in his despising further cursed. It is written regarding Samael, whence came you? From up and down and in and out and throughout the whole earth. And this is to each place blood is shed. For the earth is the altar, and it is written in the Zohar, the altar of the second temple, a dog would appear and collect the sacrifice, which is the blood spilled upon the earth, to each place it appears, and so it is written, the voice of your brother's blood cries out from the ground, and this voice. 136 is 136, Ha-Samael, which has a value of voice and is the voice of the dog as it collects the blood. The blood is licked up from the altar, which is the earth, and it is written regarding this, the place where dogs licked the blood of Naboth shall dogs lick by blood. Even 9. For this dog who is Samael licks this blood up from each place in the earth, which is to each place it is spilled, and so it is written, from up and down and in and out and throughout the whole earth, licking the blood of Jezebel. With his right hand, which is Rahab, he appointed lower heavens of harlotry, that the thoughts of a man would be harlotry and killing, and so these two powers are procreation and eating. Behold, each thing here procreates and eats, and this is the order for the portion of the dog, which is the dust, as it is written. Man formed from the dust, and similarly for the serpent, who is given that man as food to each place where it is spilled, and by which licks that blood is written, dust shall you eat all the days of your life. This is the altar of the earth, which is the dogs. And there is another altar above, in which the Zohar states a lion would eat the sacrifice, and this lion is the foolish king who consumes them off of the altar, which are the heavens he has created, and regarding these heavens it is written, heaven will pass away like a vapor, for these heavens were created by the foolish king, and because of their commingling with the mindless are heavens of grief, wrath, terror, darkness, gloom, sorrow, disdain, and more. It is written regarding this place, these 6, yes, these 7 are an abomination. Now they cursed this man and woman, as it is written, the ground is cursed because of you. You will eat from it by means of painful labor all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. And regarding the woman in pain and suffering, and the woman referred to the soul, and this would be accomplished by means of flesh and bone, and it was sealed by a garment of skin. It is written regarding this matter in the Zohar, Book 2 Noach Section 6. 37. He said to him, had Adam not sinned, he would not have borne offspring from the side of the evil inclination, but he would have borne them from the side of the Holy Spirit. But because he produced offspring from the side of the evil inclination, all the offspring of mankind are born from the side of the evil inclination. They have no permanent existence therefore, because the other side has been mixed with them. Now procreation and killing are the causes of this place which is cursed, and it began with his son Cain, who killed Abel, spilling the blood on the altar of the earth and making weapons and instruments of death, having sided with Samael. Now the foolish king, having noticed the man was different, said, who said you were naked, and similarly where are you? Being ignorant of the light within the man, which was the light of the Father. And so it is written in the Zohar Book 2. For 32, Rabbi Yehuda expounded upon the verse, come and behold the works of Elohim, who has sowed desolations in the earth. 356, Rabbi Shimon said, woe to people, for they are not aware and do not take heed nor search for knowledge. They are all blindfolded and do not know how full the world is with strange and invisible creatures and things. If permission were to be given to the eye to see, people would wonder greatly as to how it is possible to survive in this world. Now the light has intervened, and the Torah was given, which is the pacification of these two, as it was stated by our sages. At the giving of the Torah he offered it to the angels in the heavens. He approached Rachab and offered her the Torah, and she asked, Holy One, blessed be he, what is inside of it? And he said, thou shalt not commit adultery. Immediately she rejected it and said, Holy One, blessed be he, if I accept this my power will be nullified, and I will be no more, for I am harlotry and cannot accept this. He then approached Samael with the Torah, and he asked, what is in it? And the Holy One, blessed be he, said, thou shalt not kill. Immediately he rejected it and said, my power is in killing, bloodshed, and murder. If I accept this, I will be nullified and be as nothing, and he rejected it. Then Samael suggested Israel and thought to himself, if this people take this Torah, they will never be able to rise. Has intervened and made a covenant with man, and has given him his Torah, that these things may be known, without which none of these things could be known. Now the foolish king was called Samael Zaken, the blind god, and so he was called Samael, and this blindness was his ignorance. And now I will make known to you the 132 tikkuns that reveal all of these matters. The light within the man. It was explained that the light of the mother was the light that the foolish king used to bring forth these 7 days under the mother. We have established it is written Vaymer, and said, and this is or me the light of Ima called me. The foolish king was ignorant of these things, and therefore did not conceive the place of his mother. Now the man was created from the dust, which was the destroyed worlds as mentioned before, and these worlds were the dust of that light, and so a pattern was formed after the pattern of the supernal, this being the 8, and so he was called 8 Ha-Adam. Now the man when formed was dead, being that which formed him was dead, and he was formed from death, which is the dust, and so he like the one who created him was dead. A certain mist gathered over him, which is Rachab the harlot, who is called Lilith. And this is the mindlessness, for it wished to mate with this corpse in the manner that worms mate and whore over a corpse. Mindlessly breeding and eating as the foolish king had whored with the mindlessness, and having seen his condition being that it was dead, took of his own light and breathed into his nostrils the neshama, which was the light of his mother. For the mother had entered into the man. For this reason she is called Shekinah, meaning divine dwelling, for she was the divine dwelling within the existence of everything created. This was the light of each saying, that is to say, the light of the mother, the neshama, and so she was grieved, being imprisoned in each place she was conceived to dwell. For the son was conceived from the light that was within her. And this light was the light of the Father, as it is written, wisdom and understanding, and so it was by that light, having coming led with the mindlessness, had the ability to command. As it was the light of her husband, and so it was as if she had gone to another, and so it was said of her by the prophet Jeremiah. If a man divorces his wife, can she ever go back to him? Has such a woman not utterly defiled herself? You have whored with many shepherds, and you return to me, says YHVH. Lift up your eyes, and see where you went whoring. Were you not sitting in the streets defiling the land with your whoring and vices? And you took many shepherds for a way of stumbling. You were shameless with everyone. You did not call on me as a companion or father or author of your virginity. And it is written by the prophet Hosea. Come, go before the law with your mother, for she is not to be my wife nor I her husband. I shall remove her whoring from my presence and her adultery from between her breasts. I shall make her naked as on the day she was born, and desolate waterless land. For she is the neshama which has been intermingled with the darkness, and this intermingling was called a prison, as it was garbed in perishable things that were conceived in ignorance and destined to pass away. Now the neshama was the light of the mother, and this light had not been placed in any other thing but the foolish king alone. However, he breathed into this man who was dead the neshama which was the light of the mother and the power of the mother, and so it left the foolish king and entered into the man, and the man became a living soul. Now this neshama, being the light and power of the mother, was eternal, and so the man could not die, as it is written, on the day you eat of it you shall die, and so before this matter it was not possible to being that the neshama contained life. And so it is written, a foolish son is the grief of his mother, for the light that had entered the man was the light of Ima, and it experienced great grief. Seeking to understand his own ignorance, he made from the dust demons and destroying angels, as it is written. Elohim formed from the ground every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and he brought them to the man, and this coupling and defilement has been explained, and this was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the whoring of the mother, as is written. You were a whore for the sons of Egypt, men of flesh, for they were the creations and children of Pharaoh, who is called Elohim, and of the left alone, being called flesh, as they were conceived of her. The matter of the woman has been explained. And now the quality of the neshama which was within the man conceived itself as the light, and this quality was the ruach and nefesh within it, and the separation of the qualities were the exchanging of these things, and they were gathered that the ruach would be the male and the nefesh would be the female. For the soul, nefesh, was dead before it was called living, as is written, a living soul, and so she, being a dead soul, brought death. Now the man's eyes were opened, which was likened to death, for the neshama that was the light within him and the quality of life that was within him extinguished, as it is written, tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for good is the light, as it is written, he saw the light, that it was good, and evil, which is the neshama, as it is written, he creates, bara, evil, that is to say bariah, which is the neshama. His eyes were opened as he too had fallen into ignorance, and his eyes were those seven. Now the man and the woman, which are the ruach and the nefesh, have been exiled into reality and scattered as dust to the earth. Each garbed in skin, the spirit and soul rests upon all things and is exiled here to experience pain and thorns and thistles, and so the soul of all things experience this pain, and the spirit of all things experience the curses of these things, and they are both garbed in skin. So it is written regarding this male and female, and he called them Adam, these being the ruach, spirit, and the nefesh, soul, and they are in the divine pattern and imprisoned in 365 aspects of the flesh and 248 aspects of the bone, and garbed in skin. So it is written, the evil burden Elohim has given to the sons of man to keep them afflicted. Ecclesiastes 1:13. It is explained in a certain place. This evil king has three names, Aker Elohim, Samael, and Strange El. He is called Adam Belial, and it is written of him, Adam Belial, that is to say, a worthless man, Proverbs 6 verse 12. They are three serpents, of which two are spoken of being revealed and one concealed. It is written, Leviathan Nehash Barak. And also Leviathan Nehash Akalaton. The one in the middle is called Tanansam, that is to say, blind serpent, as he the Tanan is called blind. Being Semiel means blind god Soma El, as he was the blind god ignorant of these things. He is wicked in his mindlessness that is in him. He said, I am God and there is no other God but me, since he did not know where his own strength had come from. The kings created 7 powers for themselves, and the powers created 6 angels apiece, until there were 365 angels. He appointed 7 powers, and they are Hesed, Gavura, Tifereth, Netzach, Hod, Yesed, and Makuth. The powers were garbed by these angels, and it is written of these that they had 6 wings and many faces, and this was explained in its place. Now the blind God has many faces, more than all of these, so that he could show whatever face he wanted when he was among the seraphim. He shared his fire with them, and they pondered to conceive the glory of its power and lorded it over them because of the glorious power he had received from his mother's light. That is why he called himself God and defied the place from which he came. In his thought he united the 7 powers with the authorities that were with him. When he spoke, it was done. Having named each power, that is to say each day, and it was spoken, that is to say they were conceived and witnessed and gathered to. They were named after the glory above, for the destruction of the powers which are the death of the kings contained them, and they intermingled with the mindlessness and corrupted variants emerged, and these were the 7 rulers alongside him. They would answer by 7 names to the blind God that conceived them, however the names after the glory above would bring about their destruction and loss of power. For it was said they would be returned to the state they were upon the day of her conception, and that she would be made childless, that is to say these things would cease to exist entirely with the conception of the light. The blind God organized everything after the pattern of the first realms that had come into being, so that he might create everything in incorruptible form. Not that he had seen the incorruptible ones. Rather, that the power which was within him, that he had from his mother, produced in him the pattern for the Alamat, universes/worlds. When he saw creations surrounding him, and the throng of angels around him who had come forth from him, he said to them, I am a jealous God and there is no other God beside me. However, in announcing this he suggested to the angels that there is another God. For if there were no other God, to whom would he be jealous? Then the mother stirred. She realized she was lacking something when the brightness of her light diminished. She grew dim because her partner had not collaborated with her. Now when she recognized the wickedness that had occurred and the robbery her son had committed, she repented. When she became forgetful in the darkness of her ignorance, she began to be grieved and ashamed. She was exiled. However, this agitation persisted. The foolish one had taken power from his mother and truly caused her fall. For he emerged with power which was a portion of the original power in the mother, and she was diminished in that she now lacked that power the foolish one was conceived by, and thus diminished her light. The foolish one was ignorant, for he thought no one existed except his mother alone. When she saw the hosts of angels he had created, he exalted himself over them. When the mother realized that the abortion had entered into her, she cried out many tears. The whole realm of the fullness heard her cries and prayers of repentance and offered prayers, and the secret of the endless consented. When the invisible Spirit consented, the Holy Spirit poured upon her some of the fullness of all. That is to say, the endless consented, and wisdom, being the Holy Spirit and her husband, poured forth light. For her partner did not come to her on his own, but he came to her through the realm of fullness, so that he might restore what she lacked. She was taken up not to her own eternal realm, but to a position above her son. She was to remain in the 9th heaven until she restored what was lacking in herself, and so it is written, understanding and wisdom, for she had entered the 9th, which is wisdom. Now the 2 aspects were one, and so it stated 2 descended and 1 returned. the one that descended was the desire to create, and this desire was the light that formed that foolish son, and so he, acting upon this same desire, created like his mother. However, teshuvah was introduced in the one who returned. That is the aspect of the mother who repented and desired to return to the fullness. So our sages stated, when the moon looked up and saw where it had been before and that its light had diminished. Now the foolish king said to the angels with him, "Come, let us create a human being after the divine pattern and with a likeness to ourselves, so that this image of the divine might give us light." For they had looked into that dust and conceived it had the qualities of the light. These 7 brought forth 7 qualities: a soul of bone, a soul of flesh, a soul of blood, a soul of marrow, a soul of sinew, and a soul of hair. Being they were kings, they were Makuth, the nefesh and soul, and so they brought forth 7 souls, and they gathered the qualities. The hosts of angels stood by and received these 7 qualities of the soul from the kings in order to create a network of limbs and trunk, with all the parts properly arranged, for it is written, man is a tree. 365 demons, which are 365 aspects of flesh, and 248 destroying angels, which are 248 bones, gathered to receive these 7 qualities from these kings, and they came together, and they divided themselves into 4, which are 3, and they are Shin the fire, Aleph the air, Mem the water, and Mem the earth. Now these are the mother letters, in that they are the light of the mother, and so by these means the man was formed. However, being formed of these things, having they themselves been formed in ignorance and darkness, lacked the light and life, and therefore the dust in the divine pattern, assembled with these qualities, remained dead. The mother breeding all of these is the lower harlot and craftsman, for it is stated of our sages, every craftsman hates his fellow craftsman, and a fool despises wisdom and instruction. And she is in the midst of them, being their center, and she is like the spark above, for she is a whore, and is unlimited in her mindlessness, and she mingled with them all. She is matter, and by her they are nourished. She is called a garment of skin, and this skin was nakedness, for she is the material that garbs everything in reality, and she is the garment of the spirit, and the soul being the man and the woman. Now each of these worked together until limb by limb, the physical and material body was completed. All of these demons and destroying angels gathered and worked together until they fashioned the physical body. However, their creation did not stir or move at all. The mother conceived to herself how she could restore that light which had been diminished, and she conceived to take back the power she had relinquished to the foolish son, and so she prayed to the most concealed of all concealments, the most merciful cause of all causes. With a great mercy, the cause of all causes sent 5 luminaries down to the place of the foolish king, and they advised him that they might recover the mother's power. They said to the foolish king, "Breathe some of your spirit into the face of Adam, and then the body will rise." The breathe here is the neshama, being the light of the mother, and they sought to conceal themselves amidst the man, and so they said to the foolish king, "Behold, when the man becomes a living soul, he will need to be continuously assisted. Let us assist you in this endeavor, that the man may see, smell, hear, taste, and feel." And so he consented, and the 5 lights entered into the man and spread to the 5 parts of his soul. Thus the word soul has a value of 430 and is Elohim x 5, 86 by 5, for these 5 lights had spread themselves throughout that dead soul alongside the power of the mother, which was called breath and neshama, and together the man became a living soul. It was said that he breathed into, because the quality of the neshama had gone out of the king and entered into the man. Now the man alongside these 5 qualities caused him to live, and these 5 are Yehidah, Haya, Neshama, Ruach, Nefesh. And they were assisted by the 5 lights that assisted him in seeing, smelling, tasting, hearing, and feeling. These 5 had another purpose from the concealed of all concealments, and that is to restore what had been diminished. The first of these was called Yehidah, because it would allow this man to be attached to the cause of all causes. The second of these was called Haya because it would allow this man to become a living soul and draw forth the water from that well of life. The third was the Neshama, the gift and power of his mother, which was the power from that foolish king. The fourth was the Ruach and the gift of a chariot, to take that man to the cause of all causes. The fifth was a living soul, so that he would be unlike the other things he was in the midst of, and that he would conceive the light of life. Thus it is written, he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul. He breathed his spirit into Adam, and that spirit is the power of his mother, but he did not realize this, because he lives in ignorance. The mother's power went out of the foolish king and into the dust body of the man that had been made according to the divine pattern, and who, unbeknownst to them being in ignorance, was the divine pattern of the one who was in the beginning. The body moved and became powerful, and it was enlightened. At once the rest of the powers became jealous. Although Adam had come into being through all of them, they had given their power to this human. Adam was more intelligent than the creators and the first ruler. When they realized that Adam was enlightened, and could think more clearly than they, a desire came about to investigate this matter, and so each thing came and coupled, being the beasts and the birds. And even in all of this defilement, which was the grief of his mother, being that the light was gathered to one side as opposed to the darkness which was to the other side, and this darkness was the secret of the woman, which is Behema, as it has been explained. Nonetheless, the light was in truth completely pure in this instance, as the darkness had been gathered out of the light, and it was divided. As it is written, Elohim divided the light from the darkness. This light was the man's true wife, as it was the light of the mother of all things. And so it is, the soul is entombed in the material, being the woman who is indeed cursed. And the spirit who is the secret of the man is saved from the material, being the light entered here, and by the light he is saved. This light was the light sent forth by the cause of all causes and the will of all wills. It filled a portion of its light with his light, for in truth this light was the light of the mother, and her repentance is his cleansing. Now this light would be garbed in the 365 demons and 248 destroying angels, and a garment of skin and many curses. When they perceived he had been stripped of evil, they took the man and threw the man into the lowest part of the material realm. The blessed, benevolent, merciful cause of all causes had compassion for the mother's power that had been removed from the first ruler. Seeing the man would be overpowered by these rulers, so with its benevolent spirit, who knew of these things in great mercy, sent to Adam a helper, the enlightened afterthought, who is from the cause of all causes and who was called life. She helped the whole creature, laboring with it, restoring it to its fullness, teaching it about the descent of seed, teaching it about the ways of ascent, which is the way of descent. Enlightened afterthought was hidden within Adam, so that the rulers might not recognize her, but that afterthought might be able to restore what the mother lacked. Now the man Adam was revealed through the bright shadow within, and they looked up. They saw Adam's ability to think was greater, and they devised a plan with the whole throng of rulers and angels. They took fire, air, water and earth and combined them with the 4 fiery winds, and he brought them together, and there was a great commotion. The ruler brought Adam into the shadow of death so that they might produce a figure again. From earth, water, air and fire they conceived in a house of iniquity, and gathered 7 evil spirits to bring forth forgetfulness. Adam became a mortal being, the first to descend and the first imprisoned. The enlightened afterthought within Adam, being the Shekinah, however, would rejuvenate Adam's mind. I asked for permission to reveal such things, and it was given for your sake, that you may see your condition, and I was sent to explain these things for this purpose, and we will discuss the garden. Now the rulers, who are the kings of Edom, took Adam and put him into the garden, and they said, Eat, as it is written, of every tree you may eat, but in fact their pleasure is bitter and their beauty is perverse. Their pleasure is a trap, their trees are sacrilege, their fruit is a deadly poison, their promise is death. They put their tree of life in the middle of paradise. And now we should discuss the particulars of this matter. The roots of this tree is bitterness, its branches are idolatry, its shadow is hatred, a trap is in its leaves, its odor is a stench, and its fruit is death. It blossoms in the darkness as it was conceived in darkness. And it is the remaining life that remained in the mindlessness, and what was, became like a seed in the soil of the mindlessness, and what is like a tree with 7 branches in which demons, fiends, Lilian, Ruakin, Mazakin, destroyers, and evil things lodge themselves within. The dwelling place of those who taste of it is Sheol and outer darkness. Now the rulers lingered in front of what they called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for through it they conceived a separation in themselves. This separation disturbed them, and so they commanded the man not to eat of this tree, for they feared the man would become aware of his light and become aware of his shamefulness and nakedness. However, the benevolent spirit of the cause of all causes perceived this, and so a serpent uncreated appeared in the midst and informed the man to eat, saying, "Eat of it, and you will be as Elohim, knowing good and evil." That is to say, he would be as Elohim indeed, for he would grow the light of the neshama, which was the power of Elohim that had been breathed into the man. He would perceive the good and the evil and see his true condition and be disturbed. They kept the man away by means of every beast and every bird. Now a fool despises wisdom, and so the foolish king endeavored to take back the light from the man, which was the neshama he had breathed into him. So he brought upon the man a deep sleep. This sleep was ignorance. Thus it is written, "I shall make their minds sluggish, that they may neither understand nor discern." Isaiah 6 verse 10. Now I will reveal a certain matter. This serpent is without creation, and without death or lineage, and is so because it was the benevolent spirit sent forth from the cause of all causes, the concealment of all concealments. Being that the man was the gathering of all light to one side, and he himself being benevolent knew he would be recognized, and so he appeared to the woman who was the darkness of the soul. The serpent said, "What did he say to you? Was it from every tree, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil do not eat?" The woman said, "Not only this, but do not touch, for the day you eat from it you shall surely die." The serpent, perceiving she was death, could not be afflicted by death, and he informed her by touching the tree. Now it was said behind the veil, she was conceived of complete darkness and complete ignorance, so when she ate from this tree she saw that it was good to make one wise, that is to say, light grew within her, and she was not complete darkness. For this reason she was alone, being darkness, and his first wife, this man being complete light, was separated. She was called Lilith, and it was said he would not couple with her. After eating of this tree, her darkness became as light, as it is written, "Darkness has arisen as light." And so Adam investigated this matter and ate, seeing his own light might grow. Upon eating his eyes were opened, and he was able to perceive his condition, and he perceived the darkness, and he saw around him demons and great evil. Shame had filled him, and he covered himself with fig leaves, that is to say, they were altered, and had another form now. The woman less corrupted, and the man less cleansed. The foolish king set forth and said, "Adam, where are you?" For he did not know what happened. Adam said, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I hid." The foolish king said, "Why did you hide, unless it is because you have eaten from the tree from which alone I have commanded you not to eat?" "You have eaten." Adam said, "The woman you gave me fruit, and I ate." And the foolish king, being filled with arrogance and jealousy, cursed the woman. The woman said, "The snake led me astray, and I ate." They turned to the snake and cursed it, and from that day the snake has been under the curse of the rulers. I asked for permission to speak of the things that are concealed in those eternal realms. It was said behind the veil of all veils, "Why is he called one? And why is the value here 13? Give ear of heaven, and give ear, O earth." The one is a sovereign that has nothing over it. It is God and Father of all, the invisible one that is over all, that is incorruptible, that is pure light that no eye can gaze. The one is the invisible spirit. We should not think of it as a god or like a god. For it is greater than a god, because it has nothing over it and no lord above it. It does not exist within anything inferior to it, since everything exists within it alone. It is eternal since it does not need anything, for it is absolutely complete. It has never lacked anything in order to be completed by it. Rather, it is always complete in light that is not light. The One is illimitable, since there is nothing before it to limit it, unfathomable, since there is nothing before it to fathom it, immeasurable, since there was nothing before it to measure it. Invisible since nothing has seen it, eternal since it exists eternally, unutterable since nothing could comprehend it, unnameable since nothing is before it to give it a name. The One is immeasurable light, pure, holy, immaculate. The One is unutterable and is perfect incorruptibility. Neither is it considered a part of perfection or blessedness or divinity, but something much greater. The One is not finite or infinite, visible or invisible, large or small. It is impossible to say how much is it. What kind is it? For no one can understand it. The One is not among the things that exist, but it is much greater. Not that it is greater, rather as it is in itself, if it is not part of the eternal realms or of time. For whatever is in a realm was prepared by another. Time was not allotted to it since it receives nothing from anyone. What would be received would be for a time. The One who is first does not need to receive anything from another. So it beholds itself in its light. The One is majestic and immeasurable purity. The One is a realm that gives a realm, life that gives life, a blessed One that blesses, knowledge that gives knowledge, a good One that gives goodness. We know not the ineffable, we would not understand what is immeasurable, were it not for what has come from the Father. This is the One who has revealed these things. And so it is written. Yeras Hashem Rashis Hokmah also. Yeras Hashem Rashis Das. Now this Father is the One who beholds himself in the light surrounding him, which is the spring of living water, and provides all the realms. He reflects on his image everywhere, sees it in the spring of the Spirit, and becomes enamored of his luminous water, for his image is in this luminous water. And so the Ayin gazes into the Ayin Sof. The Father's thought became a reality, and she who appeared in the presence of the Father in shining light came forth from the filling. She is the first power who preceded everything and came forth from the Father's mind as the forethought of all. Her light shined like the Father's light. She, the perfect power, is the image of the perfect and invisible Shekinah. She, the first power, the glory of Israel, the perfect glory among the realms, the divine pattern of all eternals, the glory of revelation, she glorified and praised the Virgin Spirit, which is the concealed of all concealments, for by this she came forth. She is the first thought, the image of the Spirit, she became the universal womb, for she precedes everything. The Mother Father, the first Adam, the Holy Spirit, the eternal realm among the invisible beings, the first to come forth. The Shekinah asked the invisible Spirit to give her foreknowledge, and the Spirit consented. When the cause of causes consented, foreknowledge appeared before the Shekinah. This is the One who came forth from the power of the Shekinah. Foreknowledge glorified the invisible One, and the Shekinah, for because of her foreknowledge, came into being. She asked again to be given incorruptibility, and the invisible One consented. When the invisible One consented, incorruptibility appeared and stood by foreknowledge, and incorruptibility glorified the invisible One and the Shekinah, for by means of this it was conceived. The Shekinah asked for eternal life, and the invisible One consented. Immediately the cause of causes brought forth eternal life, and eternal life stood before the Shekinah and praised the invisible One and the Shekinah, for by means of this eternal life was conceived. She asked again to be given truth, and immediately the cause of all causes consented, and truth was brought forth. These five conceived forth by the Shekinah, which are her 5 parts. The Father, which is forethought, the invisible One, and the cause of causes alongside a certain man constitute 10, and they are within the first Simtsum, and they are eternal in these aspects. And these are the 5 lights. Now the Father gazed into the Shekinah, with the pure light surrounding the invisible spirit, and its radiance. The Shekinah conceived from this, and it produces a spark of light similar to the blessed light but not as great. This was the only child of the mother and father of all that had come forth. Israel, its only offspring, as it is written, Israel my firstborn, the only child of the Father in pure light. The invisible mother of all, who is the Shekinah, rejoiced over the light that was conceived, that came forth first from the first conception of the invisible Spirit's forethought. The Spirit anointed with goodness of the invisible Spirit. When the child received this, it immediately glorified the Shekinah and the forethought, for by this means it had come forth. The child asked to be given mind, as a companion to work with, and the invisible one consented, and mind appeared and stood by the anointed, as written. A wise son makes a glad father. The son is conceived in the 10th, which is the Shekinah, and he is the 6th of her aspect, and the mind is the Malkuth of her aspect. All of these things came forth into existence in silence. Mind wished to create something by means of the word of the invisible Spirit. Its will became a reality and appeared, with mind and light glorifying it. Word followed will. For the anointed self-conceived God created everything by the word. Life eternal, will, mind, foreknowledge, and truth, alongside forethought, glorified the Shekinah and the invisible one, for by these means they came into being. The Holy Spirit brought the self-conceived divine child of itself and the Shekinah to perfection, so that the child might stand before the great invisible Virgin Spirit, set the true self conceived, for by this he contained within himself the foreknowledge, forethought, mind, will, life, truth, divine dwelling in that he would be the divine dwelling over, and the invisible Spirit by which he would go forth through the cause of causes. The one called by a great name, for the name is known only to those who fear it. Now it was by 13 qualities, and so for your sake I asked, and for your sake permission was given to reveal. They surround and guard the rose, as it is written, like a rose amongst the thorns, and so these are 13 kingdoms, and for your sake I investigated these things, and behold. The first kingdom will say of the Illuminator that he came from the Spirit of the Father and was nourished in the heavens. He received the glory of that one and the power. He came to the bosom of his mother, and in this way came into the water. The second kingdom says of him that he came from a great prophet. And a bird came, took the child, who was born, and brought him onto a high mountain, and he was nourished by the bird of heaven. An angel came forth there. He said to him, Rise. God has given you glory. He received glory and strength, and in this way he came into the water. The third kingdom says of him that he came from a virgin's womb. He was cast out of his city, he and his mother. He was brought to a desert place, he was nourished there. He came and received glory and power, and in this way he came into the water. The fourth kingdom says of him that he came from a virgin. Solomon sought her in Sheol and his armies, which had been sent out. Solomon himself sent his army of demons to seek out the virgin. And they did not find the one in whom they sought, but the virgin in whom was given to them. It was she in whom they fetched. Solomon took her. The virgin became pregnant and gave birth to a child there. She nourished him on the border of a desert. When he was nourished, he was given glory and power from the seed which he conceived, and by this way he came into the water. The fifth kingdom says of him that he came from a drop of heaven. He was thrown into the sea. The abyss received him, gave birth to him, and brought him to heaven. He received glory and power, and by this means he came into the water. The sixth kingdom says that one came down to the realm that is below in order to gather flowers. She became pregnant from the desire of the flowers. She gave birth to him in that place. The angels of the flower garden nourished him. He received power and glory from there, and by this means he entered the water. The seventh kingdom says of him that he is a drop and came from heaven to earth. dragons brought him down to caves, and he became a child. A spirit came over him and raised him to the place from where the drop had come. He received power and glory, and by these means he came into the water. The eighth kingdom says of him that a cloud came over the earth and enveloped a rock. He came from it. The angels above the cloud nourished him. He received power and glory, and by this means he came into the water. The ninth kingdom says of him that from the 9 muses one separated. She came to a high mountain and spent some time settles there, so that she desired her own body to become androgynous. She fulfilled her desire and became pregnant from her desire. He was born. The angels were over the desire, nourished him. And he received glory and power, and in this way entered into the water. The 10th kingdom says of him that the father desired his own daughter. She was pregnant from her father. She cast her child out into the desert. The angel nourished him there, and in this way he came into the water. The 11th kingdom says that God loved a cloud out of desire. He fathered in his hand and cast upon the cloud above him some of the drop, and he was born. He received power and glory, and in this manner he entered the water. The 12th kingdom says of him that he came from 2 luminaries. He was nourished there. He received power and glory, and in this way he came into the water. The 13th kingdom says of him that every birth of their ruler is a word, and this word received a mandate there. He received glory and power, and in this way he came to the water. This water being the water before creation, that the desire of those powers might be satisfied. In truth they are all ignorant, being not in Yirah. But the generation without a king says that God chose him from all the eternal realms. He caused knowledge of the one of truth, who is undefiled, to reside in him. From an eternal realm he entered, and he made the generations of those people whom he has revealed these things to shine. And everything depends on Yirah, yet they do not know. I asked for permission behind the veils, and permission was given that these things for your sake should be known. Now the Son is the Son of the Father, as it is written, a wise son makes a glad father, being that he was conceived of the Father, and so he was called a wise son. It was explained this Son asked for mind. This mind is the vessel by which this Son would comprehend and understand. For the Father was the light and called secret, in that the word light 207 has the value secret. 207 Now this Father is the one who is in secret, and it is said of him that is the Father in secret, and he sees that which is in secret, because he is the endless. 207 which has the value of these things. Now life was brought forth, because it is written, wisdom gives life to its possessor, and alongside these things the Son, whom all of these qualities were given, and by whom sits on the throne of his Father, for it is written, the throne of glory exalted from the beginning, and this glory is the glory of the Father, for glory has a value of 32, and our sages have established there are 32 paths of wisdom, being the first and last, which is the Lamed, and Beit being the first and last letters of the Torah, which value 32. What remains is Rashit, for this was wisdom, and is a beginning, as it is written, the beginning is wisdom. Now this Son gladdens the Father by means of the mind which was conceived to comprehend. The Father being light could not conceive the darkness, however the child having the light and qualities of them all could receive and understand the darkness. So it was through the mind the one sitting on the throne of glory in the eternal realm of the Father perceived the mother who had been exiled. He received her cries and went forth, being the enlightened afterthought, for it was by means of the filling the afterthought became enlightened. He perceived in addition another throne below, which was in heaven, as it is written, heaven is his throne. That is to say, the foolish king in heaven. I asked regarding the place of exile and the mother, and for your sake these matters were revealed. She perceived that an abortion had entered her and cried out, that is to say, that she was exiled out of the fullness of the eternal realm, which is Atziluth Yod, and the filling in which she cried to. She was exiled in Beriah, which is Hay, and perceiving from her place of exile the inferior worlds of Yetzirah and Asaya of her aspect, saw and understood from her place that which had emerged within her. It had reassembled itself through 7 days, and so it is written. 7 days under the mother, being that this one who had been born dead now was alive and within the mother again, by which she perceived the abortion being in an inferior order than herself. These 7 are called 7 vanities, and abominations, houses of idolatry. For it in this house of 7 pillars he proclaimed, I am a jealous God. The king was called the middle pillar and is known by the letter Vav, and his craftsman, that is to say his wife, is a whore, and she is the lower Hay, called the earth. Kingdom, and ground, for she is material matter and the garment of these things, and they being reality are her prisoners, for they are imprisoned here under Pharaoh, the foolish king. Regarding this it is written, the ground is cursed for your sake, for she being the source of material reality has imprisoned the man, and the woman being the spirit and the soul which is imprisoned in the garment of skin which is matter. Therefore she is called kingdom and earth. Now again for your sake I reveal this, and as of those holy luminaries who have labored in this endeavor have said, woe if I reveal this, and woe if I do not. If I reveal this, then that which is corrupted may become incorruptible. However, if I do not, the friends and all that are with them alongside the world will be robbed of this thing. The neshama, which was the light of the mother she recovered from her foolish son, by means of him breathing the breath of life into the man, was the power to create by means of the mother. And so after the light had entered the man, never again do you see the foolish king create anything for the power to create a thing. Bara, which is Beriah, and the light of the neshama, which allowed the man to understand, for Bina, which is this grade, afforded the man this light, had gone out of him, and with it the power to create, and so never again does it say, he created, for it is written, the wicked shall be silent in darkness, and so the power to create went out of him. The foolish king in his ignorance recognized the man was different, and sought to remove that power of the neshama out of that man. And so he caused a deep sleep to fall upon that man, in that he might endeavor to remove the neshama from the man, but he could not. For the light of the mother that had entered the man contained life, and this life was life eternally. Hence there was no need of the man to eat of their tree of life, as it is written, in the day you eat of it you shall die. This is because the neshama made the man eternal. The king put a deep sleep onto the man and attempted to remove the neshama, but he failed in his labor. For when he grasped at the light within the man, only darkness came out, for he had not the light and could not bring out the light, having surrendered it, which was his birthright, and from this he came to despise it, being himself darkness, for it is written, a fool despises wisdom and instruction. For the neshama dwelled within the tabernacle of the man, and so what he drew out was the darkness of the defilement he had caused, and this in truth caused the man to become cleansed of these things completely. For this reason, the letter is introduced for the first time in the Torah at this place. For it is from the side the power of Samael was withdrawn from the man, being that the foolish king in a fruitless endeavor to withdraw the neshama, which was the light of the mother and the power to create, from the man, but he could not. Drawing out only the darkness of death, which was the woman formed by his futile attempts to corrupt it by means of the beasts and birds formed from the ground and brought to him. By this reason Cain would despise and kill Abel, and Esau would despise his birthright, for he is the foolish king, and the mother Rivkah labored with Yaakov, that is the second man who contained the neshama, who came out second in that he was formed after the first had been created. Now this is because it is written of the one who emerged from the mother, in the image of Elohim, and so we see it was not of the substance, but the image. From this point, the foolish king no longer creates for the power to create, which is the light of the mother, and the neshama is within the man. It was explained in its place that the eating of the tree for the woman was as light, for her being complete darkness gained light from this tree, and her appearance altered, as it is written, darkness arises as light. And her being conceived from darkness was separated for the light, as it is written. And Elohim divided the light from the darkness. For he perceived it is not good for man to be alone. And he separated the man which is the light from the woman which is darkness. For this reason the man was not with the woman when the serpent spoke. This woman is called Lilith, because it is written of the darkness, and darkness he called night. Now having light within her darkness she appeared to the man, him being light and having noticed light within her and that the darkness had been altered, desired to conceive for himself that light. This occurred because the neshama within him was the light of understanding, and so he set forth in the endeavor to understand. Now when the man ate from this tree his light diminished, however the neshama remained eternal. Therefore the foolish king said to himself, Behold, I will prepare a place where this life eternal shall be suffering eternal, and for this reason man reincarnates eternally until the passing away of this place. It is written, The earth will pass away like a garment, and similarly the heaven will pass away like a vapor. Now the enlightened afterthought, being the aspect of the afterthought after it received the filling of the light, went forth from the concealment of all concealments, because it was the wisdom in understanding, and so it was concealed amidst the neshama within the man. It is this aspect that labor with the man through suffering and pain, laboring to restore the light of the mother, and those sparks that become corrected are gathered into the light of the moon, that is to say the realm of the mother, which is called the Garden of Eden. Here they are put away like a time when a woman is in her uncleanliness, which is for a period of 7 days, and these 7 days under the mother must be corrected. The light of the neshama must be restored to its fullness, and then she will return to her eternal place, being in the fullness of her light. Therefore until this time comes the sages who complete this task of the mother's Torah are stored away in the light of the moon, which is to say the corrected aspects of the neshama, which is the light of the mother, which restores the moon, which is the mother, and are stored away with her in this place. Until the time of the fullness comes and her exile will be over, and this is the Jubilee, for at this time she will measure everything by the Omer, which is the Jubilee, and the slaves shall be set free. Now that one who labors with man is called a shepherd, because he shepherds the lost sheep, which is the neshama, which is called lost from the mother, and because the creation was formed from ignorance, as the one who formed it was ignorant. They know not the place of this thing, and therefore they know not the great work that has been labored, which is to restore Vav He with Yod He. As it has been established, they know not the place of his glory. For a wise son makes a glad father, and he restores the light to even that son, for it is written and commanded to redeem the firstborn. Laboring in secret the neshama, which was the dust of the earth. As it is written of that one who is like the son Yaakov, who was blessed to be as the dust. For his portion was the birthright, and this is the neshama by which a man may understand, and therefore it is written, You will know, and similarly to know that Hashem he is the Elohim, for knowing is what is required for the increase of the light. Now in the latter time Esau will serve Yaakov, and the older will serve the younger, to endeavor the correction, for his ignorance will be lifted. And so it begins with, The secret of Hashem is with those who fear him. I again went behind the veil and asked for permission to be granted, and for your sake again permission was granted. Now these 7 days are called evils, in that the days are evil, and so the foolish king brought forth 7 androgynous beings, which are the 7 kings. Each of these beings are regarding the 7 days of creation, and for this reason it is written of each of them, There was evening and morning, that is to say, each was male and female. Now these as mentioned are the kings of Edom, and they are called kings in that they rule over Canaan. Now these 7 are called 7 runners and 7 eyes. Each being is a day, and each day is male and female. These 7 are before him, and they are called 7 spirits before him. Within the secret of the Father's Son there is also 7 spirits before him. As it is written in Isaiah, The Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of wisdom, the Spirit of understanding, the Spirit of counsel, the Spirit of power, the Spirit of knowledge, the Spirit of Yirah, fear of. I labored to ask about the nature of this foolish son. Having been brought forth alongside the heaven and the earth, as it is written, The Elohim who has not created the heaven and the earth shall pass away, emerged alongside 7 qualities within the light of those sparks. And when they emerged they were united within that foolish king. The light of the neshama intermingling with these things, as it is written, these 6 yes these 7 are an abomination. Day 1, 1st King. Haughty eyes, and regarding this matter, a decree went forth as it is written. A haughty look, a proud heart, and the plowing of the wicked are sin. Proverbs 6 verse 17. For by means of this it is written. He saw that it was not good for the man to be alone. He said in his heart, I am a jealous God, and there is no other God with me. And he laid forth the man to till the ground in error, as it is written, the ground is cursed for your sake, and so of the first day he saw, as it is written, he saw the light, and by means of that pattern formed an androgynous being. As it is written, the light he called day, for this light was that light that first existed but did not endure. Let there be light, for it existed, and immediately there was light, for upon intermingling with the mindless became no longer light, but light that is in truth darkness, for it had absorbed it. The darkness he called Lila, night, there was evening and morning, male and female, day 1. Day 2, 2nd King. A lying tongue, for it is written. A perverse person stirs up conflict. And gossip separates close friends, these friends are the waters, as it is written of the 2nd day. Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. It did not come forth by his command, as the light had not come forth properly by his command, and so he lied and wished to conceal this matter. It is written, and Elohim made the firmament in that it was not brought forth by his speech, but he made it, concealing from those that were with him this matter. He caused from this firmament a separation of what was united, as it is written, Elohim made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Elohim called the firmament heaven, however this was not heavens, but vanity and error. For even in his foolishness he could recognize its evil, and therefore it is not written of this day that it was good, for it was a day of lies, conflict, gossip, and the separation of close friends. It was called day 2. Why was it called 2, Hebrushi? This is the value of Satan, and emerged from the secret of the fire called Shin, for he established these things with hatred, as it is written, I hate, Hebrew Shana. This one is dripped in crimson, as it is written of the tapestries, crimson which is Shani. It is called Satan, and on this day the fires of Gehenna were lit, for in truth these things are all describing Gehenna and Sheol. This one has the face of an ox, as it is written. They all had the face of an ox to the left side. For this is that one upon whom eats the grass off of the mountains, as the mountains are his domain, being Devurah, and he eats the grass from this place, as it is written, Behold Behemoth which I made with thee, he eateth grass like an ox. And in the water. This grass is tossed into the fire of this place, and lost in hatred and envy, for he is the cause of separation, and this domain was appointed for him to consume. He is called Heaven Shamaim, because he is formed of certain qualities of the first and second, which is Mayim water and Esh fire. Day 3, 3rd King. Hands that shed innocent blood, for Elohim said, Let the water under the firmament be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. And Elohim called the ground land Eretz, however this was not Ha-Eretz, as with this that was formed, but only according to the patterns, and everything that was named was in truth another thing. Elohim called the gathering of the waters seas. He said, Called the first face seas, of which it is written, Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb. He fashioned it, and it was called the Dead Sea, for it did not contain life, and according to the divine pattern male and female. The earth, and the water, let the earth bring forth grass, seed-bearing plants and fruit trees, each bearing fruit with seed according to its kind. For this is Tifereth, and called a man, as it is written, Man is a tree, and this was the assemblage of wars, for each tree was bearing according to its kind, and killed any other kind that came near to it, and so blood would be shed on the earth, because of the power of separation within this king. So it is written, There was evening and morning, day 3, that is to say, male and female, and it was called 3 in that it contained within in it 3 qualities. Each was formed by separation, for each had been brought forth by androgyny. He saw that it was good, that is to say, it was good to separate according to its kind. For it is written, he saw that it was not good for the man to be alone, by means of this king innocent blood will be shed. Day 4, the fourth king. A heart that devises wicked schemes. For this king brought curses into the world, as it is written, let there be lights. However, this light is spelled deficiently, as our sages have established, for it brought forth curses. This great light was a great serpent which was placed in the firmament, that is to say the heart, and from here it devises wicked schemes as to how they might curse the man. It rules the day, for it was drawn out by the power of the light, which is the day. It emerged by the quality of the light, and through means of that firmament, and by curses and lying speech emerged with the quality of separation. Therefore it is called the fourth day, in that this one emerged by these four qualities. That firmament is the second king Satan, which gives him dominion over the evil of the day. For this is the greater light, being that it drew from the greater evils, which are the great serpent. 365 demons were appointed alongside it. Now the lesser light, is to say the lesser of the admixture light of evil, was the female. Given to rule the night, she is called by the name of the power that birthed her aspect, which is the first king called night. She emerged having the quality of that night, that is to say a type of light that shines in darkness. However, lacking the fullness, all who chase her are brought into insanity and slain. When her light is filled, she shines, and the ignorant one goes forth after her light. However, upon the fullness of that light, it immediately diminishes, and the male lays a trap to bring forth wicked schemes. She sends them in cycles through 28 chambers amongst 12 legions appointed alongside her. She moves through 13 higher powers appointed over those 12. They are spread alongside 248 that were formed from the light of the first day, which are 248 destroying angels, as it is written, wrapped in light, that is to say the light of the first king, and so it says it rules the night. Its appearance is white and red. This is the servant and maiden. Day 5, the fifth king. Feet that are quick to rush to evil. He created the great tannin, as it is written, Elohim created the tannin gadol, great serpent. Now it is written, let the waters swarm with living creatures, but this living was not of the Father but of the soul, and this was dead, as it is written, became a living soul. Now that one called the waters, which is the third king, brought forth the quality contained within its nephesh, soul. And by means of this formed another, and it was mingled with the mindless and created legions. And let birds fly from the earth, for that one called earth, which is the same king being the third, brought forth of its male aspect a certain beast, and so it is written regarding these things. There is a serpent on the land, and one in the sea. They being brought forth by that one called land, and sea, which is the third king, as with the fourth, which emerged from the first and second king's qualities. Morning and evening, male and female, day 5. Day 6, the sixth king. A false witness who pours out lies. Elohim created the beasts of the ground, which is to say he had formed these kings which have the face of beasts from the ground, which is the dust of the destroyed worlds. Upon seeing them he said, let us make man after our image and after our likeness. And so this man was created in this image and likeness of Elohim, for he was a man of Elohim, and conceived for the purpose of completing that foolish king's endeavor. This man was appointed to rule over all of the other angels, answering only to the foolish king. He fashioned him a throne in heaven, as it is written, upon the throne the likeness of a man, for it was the likeness and image indeed. It was appointed to subdue the earth and bring forth great wars. It was conceived androgynous, as it is written, Adam, man in the day I created him male and female. He was formed from the bestowal of a lying tongue and haughty eyes and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wickedness, feet that run to evil, these being the kings who gathered to assemble these things into that man of Beriah, which added their face to his face, and so they all had the face of a man. Now this man is called Adam Belial and is a false witness appointed by this foolish king to ensure the earth is subdued. His father the foolish king is called Abaddon, that is to say father of Adon, lords, for he is the father of these kings and the father of Adon who is called night. Day 7, the seventh king. It is called Shabbath as it is the seventh, as it is written, Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because on that day he rested. This is to say that it was a fixed dwelling from all work, Hebrew Mikal Melekido, that is to say Makuth, which is the kingdoms of these kings. He assembled himself as a king who rules 7 kingdoms. When one would come against him they would flee in 7, for these 7 are 7 eyes that go throughout the whole earth. At this time a disturbance occurred like 70 sounds of labor, and the mother looked within and perceived the child had labored and now had come to rest. She perceived and cried out, and the fullness received these things, and it was laid forth, an account detailing these things, so that the man, through the Torah, will come to understand. It will at that time be fulfilled, I will take you to the land of your fathers. The first precept is Yirah, and with it one fulfills all 613 Yirah, for this is the filling of wisdom and understanding and the removal of ignorance. Now it is time to reveal and break the powers of that evil one. Semiel has a value of 131, and so I have been set forth, having myself a name of 131. To break the head of that serpent and unlock the keys to 7 heavens by the sound of 7 shofars. And the male will gnash their teeth, and the woman will wail in agony as a woman in labor and pain, for the fullness will nullify those powers, and they will pass away, as ignorance passes away with the light of understanding, and as a dream passes away when one awakes from darkness. This is the interpretation of the king of Babylon's dream, of which the dream of Pharaoh was revealed in a certain other place. Blessed are you, now gird yourself and prepare for descent, which is ascent. The power of the mother which is to create resides only with man, and so it is here that man alone creates, and alone has understanding. However, the ground is under great curses, which are like the magic of Balaam and Balak. Regarding this it is written, there is nothing new under the sun, for the foolish king had relinquished the power to understand and create unto the man. Now nothing new is created by that foolish king.